Hey folks, and welcome to a Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Eyes Wide Shut, directed by Stanley Kubrick, The Stepford Wives by Frank Oz, Coherence by James Ward Burkett, newly released See How They Run by Tom George, and finally, Don't Worry Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay with me. And how was your week of movies, Vin?
Week was good. Maybe a little bit all over the place. Maybe the big umbrella is relationships to all
That
these
could work.
movies.
That would work.
See How They Run is kind of the outlier, but yeah, I was able to kind of keep it all together.
You got some heavy hitters in here.
Yeah. I mean, no less the first Kubrick film we cover on the podcast. So
Is it the first one?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
and his last Kubrick film.
Right. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting week. Excited to talk about all the movies as always.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's start with that big one.
Sure.
And I'm excited to see, obviously, of course, how the modern day watch, how's it actually hold up as far as our ratings go. This is Eyes Wide Shut, a movie that almost everyone's heard of before. It's in 1999. It's Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman. Set the film up a little bit. What do we get with it?
Yeah, so like I said, kind of odd that this is the first that we're covering on the podcast, just because Kubrick is one of my favorite directors, folks. In addition to 2001 being one of my favorite films of all times, this director really kind of shaped what I was tuning into, what I was about when coming into liking film and kind of wanting to study it as well. This is a little bit of an oddball because he died only 4 days after giving the final cut of this film. And also his prior film...
like it wasn't even in theaters yet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was... oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of... a lot of suspicions that there was studio meddling in his final cut. Because the final cut is what he delivered, and then 4 days later he died. I won't get into that because that's a deep dive. And Kubrick films also have like a huge urban legends around them. I mean, obviously The Shining, 2001 itself, Clockwork Orange, all of these have kind of a legend to them behind the scenes.
Multiple stories or something. Yeah. What was the theory with this one? That the theory is that they were messing with his film so much that it gave him a heart attack?
No. More so that he got such an accurate depiction of the elite and the 1% that they messed with the edit post-mortem.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Which is, I think that's totally plausible in the sense of, they just will mess with an edit, especially if the guy's dead, The studio will absolutely
They're probably oh, great. This is...
we can trim this one down.
You should kill more directors.
Exactly. So 99, his prior film was 1987. There's a big gap between 99. So despite being a huge fan of Kubrick films, I have never seen this one. And primarily, I think it was just because of Tom Cruise. It was...
Oh, yeah, okay.
I was steering clear. Also a secret Christmas film, so...
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. But the pitch here is the top 1% of Manhattan are into some freaky shit. That is it. That is basically it. This film kind of deals with, in a big umbrella of relationships and sexuality in relationships. After a emotionally devastating conversation with his wife, Tom Cruise stumbles into... kind of an odyssey of sorts. He's going throughout Manhattan. He's going throughout the city. He eventually stumbles a bit too far and steps into something much bigger than what he could imagine. And that's kind of the pitch here that I want to give. Again, the themes here, Kubrick is tackling what sexuality means in relationships. That sounds very high level, but that's where this kind of Odyssey format comes from, because Cruise's character in this, he's a doctor, he is of the elite in Manhattan at this point. Right. And he kind of experiences all walks of life at Manhattan, from a prostitute on the street to a sexual deviant, to all the way up to this kind of 1% perspective on it, which is interesting. It's definitely a very weird movie. Yeah. Right out of the gate.
And a long movie, too.
Yes. It is a long movie, but worth it, I would say.
Okay, all right.
The long run time is worth it, because you do kind of feel by the end of this one, fateful night, there's a lot that has been covered. We really have traveled to a lot of different walks of life in Manhattan. It doesn't feel like a waste of time. Okay. Even though maybe some of the earlier parts of the film do feel like a waste of time, because it's Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in a room. But yeah, it is the Kidman and Cruise show. KC is my notes. But I mean, really, this is at the height of their attractiveness. They're married too. Kidman is gorgeous in this film, but boy, let me tell you, you put two mildly bad actors in a room, and I don't think good scenes come out as a result. Okay. The formula is not there. I think part of my problem is we don't get to see their love first in the relationship. So when we have this weird conflict introduced, and again, it's almost all teetering on one single fight that they have in their relationship that is emotionally devastating to Cruise's character. It makes it kind of a weird dynamic. We see conflict first in this, and it makes it a little cruel and makes it a little sad as well, I think, to Kidman's detriment as a character as well. Luckily, she does take a backseat eventually. Because of this weird fight, Cruise gets on his way. He makes a night call. He's a doctor, and then he uses that as an excuse to explore the city, basically.
Okay. And that's it. We're taking place in one night.
Yeah,
one
pretty
New York
much.
City night.
We have a little bit of spillover the next morning, but yeah, pretty much one night.
Okay, all right.
And that's where this Odyssey, description comes from. Tom Cruise, his performance here is very different. I would say if you are a lover of Tom Cruise, this might be an interesting watch for you. He's super awkward in this film. It's hard to nail down his character in this, because even when he's alone, he's very passive in scenes. He's kind of just having everything come at him. Okay. He's experiencing the world around him as he processes this very devastating fight that he gets in with his wife. Or not even fight, it's like a weird conversation. He's very passive in scenes, though, and not his usual role. I would say definitely notable for that reason. I didn't enjoy it to a huge amount. Again, I kind of had a self-fulfilling factor that I stayed away from this movie because of Tom Cruise, and I don't think I would have recommended it because of Tom Cruise, but different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. And what was his performance compared to this, and how was he in Magnolia? Because that was a different role too, right?
Yes, totally opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh, okay.
Where Magnolia was almost like Tom Cruise
to 11.
Yeah, magnified.
Okay, gotcha.
This was, again, he's not, he's processing things emotionally, and he really doesn't even talk in a lot of scenes.
Like moody Tom Cruise almost.
Yeah, moody.
Okay.
It's a very moody film in a lot of ways as well. Both for the moods they deal with, around the kind of the messy feelings around sex in the relationship and things like that. Regardless of acting, though, and acting quality, I really could not take my eyes off the screen. I mean, this is Kubrick's filmmaking here is electric. There's, it goes back to what you're saying, Tom. Was this really worth? What is it? Is it close to 3 hours or?
Yeah, it's like 2 hours and 40.
Yeah, 2 hours and 40. Believe me, I was still just ready enough to really knock it for maybe let's cut some in the edit. Maybe let's trim this down. Maybe I was the film producer, post-mortem. But I'm telling you, there is such a distinct feel coming across all these characters placed together. We don't really have a good feel for a majority of the film of why Tom is meeting all these people and what it means. And then it finally really, solidifies at the end. And it may not be the most satisfying solidification, but it really does all come together. And there's just such a purposefulness to the story and what we focus on with it. So as awkward and unusual scenes seem to be, each is there for its own reason. That only becomes kind of complete at the end. Much how with his prior work, Full Metal Jacket, we have kind of a lens on rage and war with this. In just the same way, Eyes Wide Shut, it's kind of looking at intimacy and relationships through sexual deviancy. And this is like these are big concepts to unpack in the film. Just how Full Metal Jacket is a huge movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I think would I really rather it not be explored through Tom Cruise? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Were you thinking people at this time period? Who would you rather see?
That's a good question.
I'm trying to think, like, who's on a rise? Who's a young actor? Would Leo be good in this?
Maybe.
99 Leo?
Sure.
Actually, yeah, probably.
Yeah, 99
be a little
Leo.
Young, but he could still probably play it up great. Young doctor.
Maybe Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val Kilmer, sure.
I mean, I was really respecting what was going on with clearly the vision. You can kind of almost sense it. It had a pulp to it.
Like everything about Kubrick was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Everything with Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mediocre to just meh, Yeah, I mean, I don't regret watching this film. I'm coming away with a positive rating on this because I really do think in the end result, it really was fully worth the time.
Okay.
I was not regretting the time that I watched with the film. It does get absolutely insane as well. So, I mean, believe me, you have some skin in the game too. If you haven't watched this film, go out and watch it, Yeah, I could say a lot more in a deep dive, but bottom line, I think this film was worth your time and worth watching among Kubrick's work as a director. It may be one of my least favorite among his work because of the acting talent, but by no means does it lack his craftsmanship. We're going to go ahead and give Eyes Wide Shut a 70 on the dot.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, 70. Yeah, that's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's good to hear that Cruise didn't totally tank it. Cruise, he didn't bring it down completely.
Yeah, the oddest thing is that I found out that they were married after the fact, and I just was wondering, wow, was this an illustration of why the marriage went downhill? Or were they just lacking, electricity on screen with each other?
Super weird dynamic.
Yeah, it was very odd.
I'm glad that we watched this though.
Yeah,
and that this is on the list for sure. And 70, hey, still good.
Oh,
and like you said,
sure.
I wouldn't be surprised once when we start going through Kubrick films where this is going to be on the lower end. Mm-hmm. A testament to Kubrick, though.
Yeah,
I think that a 70 might be the lowest.
Right. Yeah, that's his bar for sure.
Which is pretty crazy. But okay, very good, Vince. So we're going to bump up here. We're in 2004 now, sticking with, unfortunately, Nicole Kidman. 2004, this is the Stepford Wives. Again, a movie that I have always heard and everything like that.
Sure.
Nothing I watched. So, who is this movie for? What is it? And how did it hold up? 18 years later.
So this was a midweek watch. I just saw Don't Worry, Darling, and they're very similar in concept of kind of utopian society, wife's in the kitchen, men's out at work type of thing. Apparently, I just hadn't had enough of poor acting from Nicole Kidman after Eyes Wide Shut. So Yoda himself directs this, Frank Oz, puppeteer, director, and filmmaker.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We haven't really covered a lot of Frank Oz's work, but his handful of director credits, this is one of them. Stepford Wives is a remake of the 1975 film of the same name. Never saw that. Wasn't going to go a stage deeper and make it a Stepford Wives episode, so you can kill me there. This is a full-on comedy, though, with a lot of satire around what we consider to be a perfect relationship. The pitch here is that husband and wife, Matthew Broderick and Nicole Kidman, move out to a utopian town of Stepford. Life is perfect, everyone is happy and idealistic, but the men of the town hide a dark secret in the town's peace. I will say... this comedic tone it really didn't sit well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll see.
In what way did it not sit well?
Because of undoubtedly where the film wants to go. It's trying to take this utopian aspect and clearly say, "Oh no, it's actually dystopian." You know, it's something bad.
Okay.
And the comedy just feels like it's a comedy movie for like good 80% of the run, and then it just decides to twist in a different way. You know. This type of mix matching, I really just did not like at all.
So it wasn't that it was cheesy; it was more so that it just literally didn't work. Like
I just think it flat out didn't work. Okay. Yeah, and hey, I mean, maybe that was the case with the original Stepford Wives, and this was kind of a nod to that in some way. But yeah, and just not well. We'll see with Don't Worry, Darling. This premise is projected through a psychological thriller lens. But here, it being played as a straight comedy for, a whole lot of the runtime, it just does not work. A lot of the comedy here is just dated 2000s comedy to the point of nausea. I mean, it is jokes about celebs, clothing brands, gay jokes, sexist jokes. Really, the whole runtime is just slinging these jokes about, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just the writing, because I was trying to think, like, early 2000s, actually, you and I, we watched Austin Powers, and that was still landing, so maybe it's just a
big,
yeah, and that's still, like, reference humor, so...
so you're saying maybe it was just, it's a product of an early 2000s comedy?
Yeah, early 2004, but also bad writing in 2004?
Yeah, it was probably just bad. There's good comedy. In 2004, it's actually, early 2000s when we started a great run of comedies. Dodgeball was 2004, I think.
Yeah.
I bet the writing was just bad.
Yeah, it has to be. Because,
and was it corny? If you're getting, like, stereotypical gay joke, stereotypical this joke.
I don't know. This is where it's landing, and there's good talent behind this. There's Christopher Walken in this. There's Bette Midler. You know what I mean?
Maybe the writing just sucked. Then.
Yeah,
the writing was bad.
It was maybe a little bit on the shoulders of delivery as well. I mean, it didn't look like anyone was enthusiastic to be in this film the entire runtime. So yeah, just one that I was scratching my heads over. And I would say, again, the film decides it wants to be something else, which is it's leading up to that for the entire film. Again, this comedy is in direct conflict with it. It just matches very poorly and kind of makes the whole thing feel like a waste of time. Not even the performances here can save it. Like I mentioned, Christopher Walken, Bette Midler, Matthew Broderick, these are, performance, actors and actresses.
Yeah, they're big names. Big names.
And one I would like to see in this type of context, but yeah, it just seems like everyone's really unenthusiastic. So I think the comedic setup is what sunk this one for me. Primarily, it tries to be funny and barely got a single smile from me. I think if you really love this cast, maybe this could be a good watch for you, but it wasn't working for me and definitely not working for such little payoff. We're going to go ahead and give Stepford Wives 2004 a 36.
Wow. Boy, we breezed past that movie.
maybe more reminiscent of some earlier episodes.
Well, like you said, it makes sense if it was just a waste of time.
Yeah. I just
weird. Were you expecting that at all?
I don't know. I was expecting some fun with it.
Yeah.
But the jokes were just so on the nose. Like, it felt like, again, what I always say about, like, autocomplete scripts, it felt like that, but in 2004,
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? The jokes almost made themselves, but the delivery wasn't there and the jokes weren't there. You know what I mean?
So and how funny is it where we covered something like Naked Gun?
Sure.
And like
it still lands. It still absolutely lands.
And that's stupid jokes.
Yeah.
But there's just, I guess it is delivery and writing and how it's a mixture of blend of the two.
The gay character makes a Brooks Brothers joke or it's the whole thing is like a sexist joke. And I'm not saying I have a problem with those, and certainly in 2004 it wasn't, like a problem, but it just wasn't landing, and that's where I think it has to relate to the writing.
Wow.
It has to be at the core.
I mean, 36 is a bad score.
It's true. Well, and again, illustrates the stay away aspect. Like, I don't know.
Okay, so that's Stepford Wives. Moving right along from that, boy, 36. Next one is a film I'm not too even... I don't really know anything about this.
Oh, yeah.
We're in 2013. This is Coherence, and What made you pick this film and then set it up for us a bit?
So yeah, this was a kind of another rare sci-fi pick off the list. I watched this with my brother-in-law, and it definitely makes sense that you haven't heard of it. This is definitely indie, under 50K
It looks like it doesn't
budget.
even have. It looks like it. Wow.
Yeah,
It looks like it doesn't even have a rating either.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's not doesn't have an MPAA.
Yeah, this is definitely low budget, small indie project.
Where did you find it?
This was on a list, but also my brother-in-law, John, who was very passionate about showing me this film, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I think this was a successful sci-fi gem mined from
Really?
from all of streaming. Yeah, this is
Under 50,000 is like
Oh, yeah.
a $500,000 film is cheap.
The director is he does writing, he does art. He was the writer of Rango, the animated
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Anything Western.
Cowboy Tom. Cowboy Tom popping up.
So, so is there any other people involved in this film that we would know from anywhere else?
One of the actors is from, I think, TV acting. I think from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay, so barely anything.
Yeah.
So really, basically, this director that came from not a whole lot. Who wrote for Rango.
Had a chance to direct this, $50K in his pocket, and folks, I mean, you could see this scrolling through streaming and skip over it, but let me tell you, that would be a big mistake because this is a great movie. This was this is what I always talk about, trying to mine the sci-fi gems, and this was successful mining. Yeah.
Was this on, what streaming platform was this on?
Amazon, I believe free as of right now on Amazon.
Oh, it's on Prime? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it's a sci-fi...
Yeah, let me introduce a
Okay,
little
gotcha,
bit.
yeah.
So I would pitch this movie as suspense thriller first, with a sci-fi kind of undertone. Our setup here is a handful of friends are gathering a reunion dinner of sorts. On this fateful night, a huge comet is passing overhead and begins to influence aspects beyond just the night sky. Like everything, I do want to stay away from spoilers, but with this one in particular has a good unraveling quality to it. It was really a fun movie to watch because it's like, man, I wouldn't call it twists and turns, but unraveling it and kind of problem solving and theory crafting as you're watching it.
Okay.
Was really one of the most enjoyable parts. I'll get into some comparisons later on of where this might relate to other movies that you watch, and folks at home, if you have something like that you enjoy like this, guess what? That's a green light from me. But there are many brilliant qualities to this, but by far the most enjoyable was the piecing of the mystery together. Really had a great quality to it. What I can talk about is how the information is presented. There are 8 people in this dinner party, and most of the time the dialogue is heavily layered over each other. People are just kind of talking over each other constantly. Okay. And for some, this might be a bit grating to listen to, but I thought it was honestly fantastic. I really did love it.
Because it was believable, because it felt real.
It just felt... I guess it felt real. I liked the kind of the chaos of it, and definitely when the panic is introduced of this kind of suspense thriller. Well, guess what? That panic really benefited from this group talk, the kind of the madness in between the group.
Yeah, having 8, I feel like, is awesome.
Yes.
Much better than like 4 or something like that. There's a lot more that can just be happening there.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we do get one-on-ones, we do get sidebars where it's just one character or 2 or a handful of characters, but those scenes where it's all 8 at once, it really feels natural, like a dinner party should, and there's a realism that comes in. I did some light research on this, and apparently each actor only was given a paragraph of what their goals were on that day of filming. And
what their goals were, what do you mean by that?
As like their character goals.
That's cool.
And really interesting stuff. The group talk is key to how the paranoia is built in this. And like I said, I watched this with my brother-in-law John. The term we came up with is orchestral dialogue. It's like you can kind of hear it all at once. You can kind of tune into specific parts, and I would say it's a 50-50 for me because I definitely loved it, but understand that when you're watching this film, it's either going to work for you or it's not going to work for you. Because if this, kind of loud over talking, this group talk, if you're not digging in, that is kind of
there's that much going on. Okay,
yeah, that is kind of the whole focus of the film. I think it was a big highlight for me, though. The camera work and the editing, in particular, here as well. Very interesting. There's a lot of hard cuts to black to indicate time jumps. I got to be honest, in ways, and maybe this is where the low budget is coming in, it almost looks like The Office in how it's shot. It's odd, especially as the camera kind of snaps to certain people's reactions. It really did feel like something out of The Office.
Like documentary style almost.
Yeah.
Bad, but not cheap.
No, I think good, because our focus are each of these 8 characters. It is definitely about the main character, M. I think it's Emily. And, it's us unpacking that, but we do care about kind of all 8 of these characters as the night progresses.
Okay.
So this, once again, I'm kind of mentioning it because this could be an area where you look at this film and maybe are turned off by that aspect. I think not only is it worth going through for my recommendation, but I thought it was actually a highlight.
It actually added to it.
Yeah.
So normally
it's about the characters. It's filmed for the characters.
Right. Normally when it would be noted or just be like, look at this cheap piece of shit that was made.
Right.
That's nice to hear that it was done in a way, or at least was sold in a way where even you, because that's something you could pick apart.
Absolutely.
That's kind of cool though, that it actually added to it rather than took away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really just a great payoff to it.
I have to say, and I'm sure you're probably getting this in your notes, but low budget film, 8 main actors that are all getting time and writing. Like, how was the performances? How was the
performances were good. I wouldn't say there's actually a standout among any of them.
Right.
But I gotta give props to the realism, because again, it did not seem like they were giving stilted dialogue or anything like that. If anything, maybe I got lost in a little bit of the group talk.
Okay.
But not bad by any means.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. I really can't talk about too much more because, again, it will rob you of the experience. The same reason why John Carpenter's The Thing is great. The same reason why I loved Bodies, Bodies, Bodies a few weeks ago is the same factor here. It is paranoia, it is pointing fingers, and it is madness. This film is great in all of these ways. I love the sheer panic of the film, and I love how violence comes as a natural result of frustration and feeling powerless as well. Once again, that's where this kind of group talk really shines, because even maybe if you're annoyed by it in the beginning, it definitely plays to the thriller aspect, the suspense of what's going on screen. I think the only thing holding me back or rather anything holding it back for some audiences might be the production of the quality and budget. Definitely like a movie we covered earlier in the podcast called Mass, where it was just
you stick 4 people in a room, and
4 people in the room, they're going to act their butts off.
Yeah.
And this definitely is in line with a favorite of mine called Primer, in the sense that budget does not necessarily equal quality,
Yeah.
And Primer definitely hits in the same way. The through line between these 3 films, definitely low budget does not equal the quality of the experience, and if anything, might just be the strength in simplicity. We're going to go ahead and give Coherence an 80 on the dot.
Ooh, okay.
Go give it a watch. It was so entertaining. I really did love it.
I mean, that's a great score. 80 saying that this is truly a great movie. Wow,
Yeah.
Coherence, 2013.
And $50K budget. I mean, it's insane to think
incredible.
about. Yeah.
Truly incredible. I mean, it is insane, actually.
Yeah.
When you think
Also
about it.
goes to show that sci-fi does not need blasters and aliens and CGI.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
We talked about Under the Skin not too long ago, and another great example of just like it doesn't even have to be look like a sci-fi to be a sci-fi,
Look at Solaris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the George Clooney Solaris, the good Solaris.
The good Solaris, you're right.
But yeah, you don't need the Flash.
Yeah.
You don't always need it, as long as your first of all, the main story is good, and then it's sold through writing and acting. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it just takes that, and it's funny. Because it sounds easy, but time and time again, part of the reason why you mind through all the bad sci-fi books, it actually is quite difficult and rare is what it comes out to be.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, folks. Okay, so that is Coherence from 2013. Apparently, you can see it on Amazon Prime with an 80%, which is just awesome, Vin. Okay, folks. So we're going to keep things moving here. Our next two films are in the now released or at least newer films.
Theaters.
Yeah, in theaters now. But first, of course, we want to just give a shout out to our producers this week, and we have two of them.
Two of them.
So we want to start out. So we have some familiar faces here, but we're going to start out. So our executive producer here coming in with $50 are Glenn and Carol, who have produced before.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
So it's $50, and something tells me because we just hit our 50th episode. But Glenn and Carol say, congratulations on your 50th podcast. Hey, thanks. Can't believe it's almost a year. This show has come a long way since the early episode and has evolved and grown into what it is today. We especially like the new updated biopics of you both. Yeah, the baby pics. The baby pics are good on the site.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the almost the About section on the podcast page of the website, you can see what Glenn's talking about. Vin, your critique of the films, in our opinion, has gotten more personal. That makes the listen settle in for a great show. Okay. An example would be, it seems the early episodes covered more of score, editing, lighting, etc. As the episodes have progressed, the character development has been the major focus, which I think is fantastic. I'm also happy that you have mixed it up with movie genres compared to the early episodes. Finally glad you got your feet wet in the comedy pool several months ago with the accolades of Leslie Nielsen. And kudos to you for the tough watches of the rated G films, or being the only guy in theater with a bunch of women and where the crawdads sing.
Oh my God, I forgot that. I pushed that to the back of my memory.
Looking forward to more comedies, which I personally prefer. Yes, he did ask. He had a list the other day, or last time he donated. He goes, Vin, I'll use your tagline. Does that make sense?
It definitely does.
That's pretty good. Thomas, you have come a long way since the early episode of just turning on the mics to being 100% involved with great questions for Vin and your own opinions as well of film. The progression of the added flip-flop is just one example. Sorry, Ocean's 8. Your humor as well has made we as listeners more engaged in the conversations you and Vin share. Hey, thanks for that. We're going to give the listeners out there a big boy alert to keep listening and tell a friend. Great job, guys. Looking forward to the next 50, Glenn and Carol. Hey.
Wow.
That's a great note. We thank you so much.
Phenomenal.
It has been 50 episodes. I mean, this is going to be 51?
Yeah.
Or 52? Yeah.
Yeah, 51. Yep.
51, and that's it's unbelievable.
It's unreal. Yeah, and maybe on the notes of me getting more natural with it, that is what 5 movies a week will do to you, Glenn.
And 5 movies a week, by the way. And we have over 250 films.
It's unreal. Unreal.
So people out there listening, we know that maybe you're only interested in a film or two, but understand a part of doing this is we do a lot. Vin does a lot of films. It's a lot of watching, and what does that mean? Again, if it's is it $2 a month, $3 a month, or is it $5 a year? That's awesome too.
Absolutely.
Like that is really that's something special, and it's you taking your time and money to one, listen to us, and 2, donate. That would be incredible.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was our executive producer. Glenn and Carol, you get the credit for that. We have another producer, associate producer of this episode. Sean hit us back up, which is great. I feel like he's going to get burnt out. He's been helping us out on the website. He's throwing money at us.
He's going to run for the hills.
Yeah, he's going to be a band overboard soon. But but Sean went to just right in. He goes, love the Lord of the Rings special a few weeks ago. The only thing I would disagree with Vincent on is his disliking of Merry Pippin in The Return of the King. I agree completely. I agree completely.
Please.
I made that known already. But yeah, Merry Pippin in The Return of the King is phenomenal. There are some very impactful and emotional scenes that would probably be cut from average action movies like all Marvel today. An example, Pippin's song in Gondor before Gondor goes to battle. This is so important to the stakes and shows fear of the war. But otherwise a spot on review. Totally agree, Sean. Totally agree. The Pippin song actually is great. And an example how to do singing in Middle Earth. That's not so.
Here we're going to the deep dive. An example of how we do singing in the Middle Earth.
I'm just saying
the Tolkien way.
They tried it in the Hobbit movies with Billy Boyd as well. Didn't work, and they just did it in the show too.
Oh,
they
really?
had like a music thing with the girls singing and things happening on screen, and it was just like, it makes me want to vomit. It's terrible. So Totally, I agree with everything that Sean just said here. He did say a few questions, though. He goes, Ian McKellen is great to watch in these films. Do you think he should have gotten an Oscar win for Best Supporting Actor in any of the three?
I believe he was nominated for the first one for Fellowship.
Yeah, we're talking about wins, though, here.
Yes.
He
if it was
won.
for one, it would be Fellowship.
Yeah.
100% should have won for
Like,
Fellowship.
he should have. And not that he's in it so much
Yeah.
that he's like a super important supporting role.
Absolutely. But again, it goes back to my notes of his presence on screen, matching with camera work, matching with lighting, matching with just like sound cues of his magicalness. Amazing.
I can agree completely.
Yeah.
Like 100%. He has a second question. He goes, the main orc in The Return of the King was supposed to. This is the goopy face one?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Codename Goofy Face.
The main orc in The Return of the King was supposed to look like Harvey Weinstein because he threatened to replace Peter Jackson with Quentin Tarantino.
Whoa.
Do you think Tarantino would have done a better job making these films?
I think
What would be the biggest difference?
Wow. I mean, great questions, Sean.
I mean, that's quite the question.
I think beyond the shadow of a doubt, I don't think Tarantino would have taken this. He's too attached to this. So many films he needs to do. You know what I mean?
Well, he's about his own original stories.
Exactly. Very true.
Okay,
very
so let's
true.
assume this is a real story. So first of all, the Weinstein Company has something like 10% in these films being made.
okay.
So it makes sense that he...
And that's what, through New Line? Or...
No,
just Weinstein.
Well, what's their production company called?
I think it's just Weinstein. Yeah, I don't
Weinstein Production, Weinstein
yeah.
something like that.
Something
but it's Harvey Weinstein and his
yeah.
brother. They make all the Tarantino films. I don't know if that's true. If the orc was supposed to look like him. There's a scene. In the appendices and like the special features of the film and stuff like that. Apparently, they made him like they made the goopy face, and Peter Jackson was like, "Well, can you add more? Like, let's really make his face look weird." And they added more goop on, and then he was like, "Can we add more?" And then apparently, Peter Jackson walked over to the clay and just started mushing it on his face. And afterwards, he was like, "That's what I want."
That's
and
amazing.
that turned out to be the guy.
Wow.
So I don't know if the Harvey Weinstein story is
Right,
true.
right.
Very funny. I bet he was a pain in the ass, and I wouldn't be surprised even if.
Sure.
Because
sure.
Peter Jackson did like nothing before. I mean, he did a lot before this, but also nothing.
But also these
We
huge
should do some of
movies.
his horror, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
But like a Tarantino Lord of the Rings,
I have no idea what that would
they
be
would be
like.
stylistic. I don't know who Samuel Jackson would play.
I don't know. Yeah, right.
Probably like Elrond.
Right.
He's just like, this motherfucking ring's got to go to Mordor.
We gotta get it there.
What would be the biggest difference? Everything.
Yeah, I would say
Everything.
probably editing, most specifically, but also soundtrack.
Ennio?
We'd probably get
And
a lot
Ennio
of his
Morricone?
spaghetti westernness in the Lord of the Rings, which maybe sounds
like
amazing.
This idea. I'm starting to like this idea. If you did Ennio, oh my god, if Ennio Morricone did the soundtrack,
Yeah,
it would
Unreal.
be bonkers.
Unreal.
And probably no separation between the different lands.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know.
But hey, if the rumors are not, I mean,
It's fun to think about.
It's fun to think about. I think I, oddly enough, do side on glad that Jackson got it all the way through. You know what I mean? Because it's
back in 2000, we don't even have that much from Tarantino. What we have from him is
Sure,
good,
sure.
but even that would be like,
his
can you
pre-Kill Bill.
imagine?
Yeah. So I mean, his style, I mean, it was a lot of, ripping off blaxploitation films and, 70s films and whatnot. So it's, I don't know. Very odd.
It would be weird.
Great question, Sean.
That is a great question.
You put us on our heels.
Sean, listen, we want to thank you for, you're a producer of the Daily Ratings already. You have another credit to your name. You're associate producer of episode 51 here. We thank you guys so much. And if you're wondering what is going on, we kind of explained it already a little bit. It's a value for value model. Are you finding value in the podcast or the website? If you could, show us back some value. You go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and through monetary support, you can donate, and that is a true, real producer credit that you can go and use and flaunt all you want, basically. And that sticks with you for life, basically. And hopefully we'll see it on IMBD soon. You all will have IMBDs,
look at that.
which would be awesome. But that's kind of how we operate here. We're completely producer supported. So today, Glenn and Carol and then Sean, of course, we want to thank you guys for
Yes, thank you all so much.
continuing to support us and continuing to produce the Daily
And
Ratings.
continuing listening, more than anything.
That's true. Thanks for sticking around. And Sean's helping on the site. He just threw up a couple more. A huge help that he's doing stuff on the back end. So that's awesome. But all right, so we're going to keep on moving on here. We have two more films. This is the now released. I'm excited to hear about this one because this has our boy in it. So this film is called See How They Run. It's kind of a comedy, and what do we get with See How They Run, Ben?
Yeah, so no experience with the director, Tom George. He looks to come from a lot of British TV experience. I introduced this with that because this film has some very dry British humor. I wouldn't call it a comedy directly. But
is that right?
Again, some of them just couldn't land for me. I don't know. It is a full-on detective film because I think fundamentally how the story is being presented and what the bulk of the runtime, the type of scenes that we see, is a lot of interrogation, a lot of flashback storytelling. This is actually kind of investigative detective work.
Oh, okay, all right.
The film focuses on basically 1950s London around a long-running Agatha Christie play, kind of whodunit play. And that, of course, she's known for in her writing. When Hollywood threatens to get a slice of the money, a series of murders break out. This basically, puts our case up to the drunk detective played by Sam Rockwell and an overzealous rookie played by Saoirse Ronan. I would say highlights out of the gate, this feels very Wes Anderson-ish. It's very quirky in editing.
Okay.
Part of why I wouldn't pitch this as a comedy first is I'm not really outbursting with laughter. Often the tone makes for cute or kind of awkward situations out of, obviously, a grim murder mystery. It's trying to be very tongue-in-cheek. It's trying to be very funny how maybe... again, not to oversimplify Wes Anderson's style, it is, someone entering into the frame in a funny way, or someone leaving the frame in a funny way, or the editing itself kind of being a joke or quirky, and that is definitely on display here, on top of, I think, very British TV type of sensibilities to the writing, and for that, clearly the director is comfortable with. I actually really enjoyed a lot of the presentation here, a lot of split-screen edits, which shows 2 to 3 shots at once, which I kind of enjoyed. I also loved the beginning lead-in segment with Adrian Brody. He's a big highlight for me in this film. And it started off with a bang, but gotta say, this film really, after that beginning segment, just continually lost steam and was almost a little bit pulling teeth, honestly.
Really?
I wasn't falling asleep in the theater, but I definitely wasn't, super excited by this film, which is a shame.
I wonder if there's any parallels. It's funny that Adrian Brody's in it, too. Like, it sounds very Wes Anderson-y.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a wide variety of cast as well.
Yeah, definitely taking cues a little bit.
Yeah.
So what lost steam about? Did you lose... Was it the story that dropped? Was it just the thrills and just the fun of it? It
is a serious detective story. The type of flashback work. We are investigating the different suspects.
Okay.
We are working with each of them, and it flashes back to what they were doing, their alibis at the time. This flashback scenario, not that it's the worst thing in the world. Certainly it's more real estate for jokes, but I just feel like... man, it was just really pulling teeth the whole time. It wasn't really entertaining. For me, I was appreciative of the British writing and the British comedy.
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah.
We're fans of that.
Absolutely. But once again, I don't think it was a huge hit. It certainly wasn't a huge hit in the theater that I was in, which I would say was mildly populated. I don't know how this is doing in the box.
Well.
Yeah. It's already going to you.
It's not doing well.
Yeah. So, it's a tough one. I think part of my disappointment is that we get into this plot really slow. And Rockwell, as our lead, is pretty lifeless in this, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's who I was saying our guy was.
Yeah. I know. I have a sixth sense of when one of our boys is in.
That sucks. I mean, that's lackluster. Would you
definitely lackluster. Not a bad film. Certainly not a bad film as far as the production goes. But,
right, like it looked good and all that. And
yeah. I guess my takeaway was I just wasn't thrilled by any moment on screen. These detective stories and that super dry British humor. I mean, I can certainly respect the writing, but, I count myself as a fan of both of those camps, detective stories and British humor.
Yeah.
and this just was not keeping my attention. I once again, Rockwell's character as the main lead detective, he kind of flip-flops from uninterested drunk to competent detective, and I just think it was just the wrong role for him. He's trying to be like this proper, he has got a big mustache, and he's a quiet detective, and again, Saoirse Ronan, she plays this like overzealous, hyper, manic detective, taking down notes of everything. I feel like that role should have been reversed.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like there was kind of a mismatch there, and I mean, none of the performances were necessarily bad. I just was not thrilled by this. I'm coming out very lukewarm on this one. I could very well be that, it's a case that it just wasn't for me. I felt that it was just far too slow paced. I kept waiting for the electricity of the intro that is there. That intro, you watch it.
It hooks you. It gets you
you're
in.
hooked. Absolutely. Yep. Whether it was just Adrian Brody's narration or just how things were edited in. It had fun, it had electricity, and then the entire film, you're just kind of waiting for that to be recaptured, and it never comes. So, a little tough, and sadly, I don't walk away with this as too positive a rating. It does get, on the plus side, of
that 50
upper,
mark, yeah.
it is on the right side of the coin, if you will, but not something that I would say is a huge recommend. I would say if I'm really reaching for things to recommend this for folks at home, you are a huge fan of Agatha Christie. You loved Death on the Nile, Orient Express. You really like these kind of almost revival of whodunits.
Yeah, which no one really does like.
Right. Maybe there was a
who's ecstatic about these films.
Right. Yeah. And even I not to even just backtrack my recommendation, but like I would then point someone to Bodies, 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 where it's like, well, all right, so this may not
different take on it.
Yeah, this may not look like a whodunit. Well, guess what? It is, and it's doing something new with it as well.
Which is, at least that's that's nice.
So. Yeah, it's tough. So, but maybe if you were, folks, if you are diehard Agatha Christie fan, maybe if you actually like some of the Hollywoodness and the callbacks to the 1950s in London, there are some kind of in-industry nods and jokes and characters as well.
Okay.
Real celebrities as characters here. So maybe there's some enjoyment there. But again, I'm coming away very lukewarm with this one to my disappointment, because this was one that I added in here and unfortunately wasn't thrilled about.
You were a little excited about. Okay.
Yeah, and didn't hit, it kind of distracted us away from the week about relationships. So.
It ruined our theme.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and give See How They Run a 59.
Okay, 59. Yeah, not very excited.
Yeah,
It's always tough with these middle of roads, as we always say.
It is,
because it's not that it's bad, but it's very uninspired, not exciting whatsoever.
And it's these middle of the road ones that really test my, kind of my thinking of like, well, how much, just fundamentally, how much am I walking away and saying, oh, you got to go see this? How much of water cooler talk is there to it,
And no one, I would guarantee no one's talking about it. I mean, it's been out for 11 days and it's made just over 12 million worldwide.
Yeah.
6 million in the States
Okay.
after 11 days. That's terrible.
Sure.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do need to make it. Oh, God, I don't know. It's tough. I want to be like, hey, theaters are open now, people. Like, give support to your theaters.
Sure.
And if you wait to it and go to your local theater, that's almost more admirable to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's just the fact of there is something to be said where it's a different experience. Going to the cinema is still nice.
Yep.
And a lot of directors will still say it about just like being in the theater or enjoying something. When you get that theater crowd like you had with Dragon Ball,
yep.
Absolutely. It's a shame that things are going to start closing soon, probably.
Yeah.
And it's so a shame. But at the same time, I don't blame you for not going to theater, because you have movies like this is out, and Beast, and all these other films that no one cares about, no one asked for.
Yeah, August was a big run of movies that no one cares for.
It's just weird. It's just weird, I don't know. It's last year was better almost as far as film and new films.
Yeah.
And
And we're coming up on now what we'll cover as well. You know what I mean? I don't feel like there are exciting releases like Dune or...
That's what I'm saying. Dune was... And that's...
Last Night in Soho.
Talk about a movie you want to go see in the theater. You watch Dune in the theater.
Absolutely. You watch it in IMAX, you know.
So, I don't know what's going on. It's weird.
Yeah. We'll see. The year's not done.
Okay.
But I'm talking them off the list. Like, all right, bring me back.
So is this one in theaters?
Yes.
Okay, this one is the talk of the town. The ladies on The View were chatting about it, you know. This is Don't Worry, Darling. Okay, this is directed by Olivia Wilde.
Yep.
And there was just a lot of controversy on set afterwards, a lot of he said, she said stuff going on. I'm now curious, really, what is the end product? Is a good film at the end of this road?
Sure. I think it's a decent film.
Okay.
It's definitely not bad.
What is it exactly? Because
very similar to Stepford Wives. It's kind of this utopian town, husband and wife type of thing. And once again, like I said in the Stepford Wives review, instead of comedy being a mismatch, it is properly in kind of a psychological thriller, you know, as the lens we're seeing this.
So through. I will say, at least the trailers for this, and maybe because it's a little weirder or kind of utopian, the trailers of this I feel like didn't give away too much.
Right.
So it's nice standing here not knowing too much about it at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I'll get into it. I mean, there's not much to the story, but hey, it's definitely not a bad movie. A lot of style over substance. This is one drama-filled release, folks. I mean, from boycotts to review bombing to Shia LaBeouf always sneaking his way back into the limelight. It would be hard not to be aware of this film. I think my guess is, or maybe my hot take, folk, is that this is all manufactured. This is a marketing attempt to get a attention around a movie and get buzz around a movie. You think I'm wrong?
You know me. I'm always going down that road.
Right.
What's the money behind it? What's the real story being told here? Why is this being done?
Absolutely.
I would say not, though. And the reason why is, I mean, I feel like wasn't Shia practically done with all of... He got far into filming.
Yeah, there was
then was kicked off stage, even though then Olivia Wilde came out and said that he was fired for the safety of the other actress, and then Shia was like,
"No, I quit.
I quit. You were bad to work with, and I have the tapes of you begging me to stay."
Yeah.
That, and then you had the whole Harry Styles thing, right?
Yeah,
where she had an affair with Harry Styles
and wasn't on directing set. I mean, I guess you are right in the sense that if it's a hit piece towards the director, what good is the marketing?
Well, that ends like big stories. Like it's not like the magazines at the
tabloids,
the supermarket are going to forget about what happened to the marriage then between Jacob Sudeikis and Olivia Wilde.
Yep, exactly.
So it's just too dirty of a story to be manufactured, I feel like.
I guess my cynical brain says, all right, it's messy, but does it result in talk? Do people have awareness of this film that otherwise they'd have not awareness of? You know what I mean?
For sure, and I feel like no one would give a damn about this
movie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I did definitely.
It's so I regardless, that's kind of our...
Can I make a prediction right away?
Sure.
Chris Pine was the best part of the movie.
No, actually.
Okay. I love Chris Pine.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite working actors.
He's good. He's definitely good in this.
All right, well,
but I would say
I'll
more...
shut up.
No, it's good. It's more toned back with it, but Olivia Wilde is directing here. Her last feature was Booksmart, which I remember liking quite a bit, but it's not rated on our end. A little bit of a gap in the master list of the data we have on our side. Like I mentioned earlier, this is very similar premise to Stepford Wives. Husband and wife, Harry Styles and Florence Pugh, live in a kind of a flashback utopian 50s town where everything is perfect. And once again, almost identical, the dark secrets of the operations of the town are pushed in our face. It's kind of obvious to everyone but the characters, particularly in some cult-like Ponzi almost aspects to their hyper-charismatic leader played by Chris Pine. I just right off the back, I really do. I mean, I really just enjoy this film having proper theming. Again, in the sequence of it, I watched this film and then I went back to Stepford Wives. So maybe that really highlighted for me, or maybe overemphasized for me how much comedy was a mismatch for this, but this had the right stylings, it had the right theme. I wasn't in love with this film, but it's just that tone, that theming.
Right, there was at least
so much better.
Yeah.
So much better of a matching. This is a psychological thriller that plays into how our characters feel. The proper tone of The Wives is feeling trapped and paranoid, and that should not just be a punchline to the joke. It should be fear. That is the focus of the film. Just right off the back, much better. Big fan of Florence Pugh, and I think she is easily the best part about this. I was a huge fan of Midsommar. She stole the show from Scarlett in her own Marvel movie, which was mind-boggling. And she brings a lot to the table here. The performance is very romantic, but she brings a great intensity to the fear needed for the role because, like I said, story elements are a little light. This is not like Coherence, where there is an engagement to the puzzle solving of it. There may be that in the beginning, but that kind of just doesn't really go anywhere. There's just not much to it.
Yeah.
I would say this is one of the biggest offenders or examples, depending on where you sit with this, of style over substance. The film is almost entirely style, and maybe that plays into not really a lot being given away in the trailer because there's not a lot to give away.
Yeah, I guess that's cool that it looks good, but there needs to be a little bit more.
Yeah, it's. I'll go into the comparison a little bit. Once we get a little bit of an understanding of why Florence's character should be scared or why there should be some sort of thriller aspect, a good chunk of the middle runtime of this is dedicated to just purely psychedelic almost horror sequences. Reminded me of Mandy very slightly, in the sense that you're just looking at the visuals almost for a while and kind of ingesting that.
Okay. So does any of the props go to Olivia Wilde then, or is this like cinematographers setting up some cool?
I think kind of whole team, because definitely there's follow through on thematics of the type of, it's not psychedelic in the sense that it's like tie-dye. It's psychedelic in this 50s kind of dystopian kind of, it's different. It's very different.
Okay.
This film is getting a lot of flack, though, a huge amount of flack, which maybe plays into some of that review bombing from hardcore fans of the drama. Harry Styles, though, is real bad in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't say I really, had him on my radar. He's, of course, what comes to mind is Dunkirk, which maybe when you're watching Dunkirk, it's like, oh, that's the one direction.
He got lost almost the way they did him up. I wasn't sitting there being like, it's Harry Styles.
Exactly.
But this one, it's like, it's Harry Styles.
Well, more so, he's just bad. No judgment, and obviously, he's supposed to be, eye candy for the kind of the female demographic of this. But boy, let me tell you, it's real bad. It's like he's trying to do his best, but a ultimately real bad impression of Leo, including many screams with a voice crack. It really does feel like he's trying to be, his acting coach said, "Oh no, just be Leo. What are you talking about? Just do it." And I really mean like down to the cracking voice scream that is in things. And
it just doesn't come across good.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It's not. It's a shame, because where I do knock this movie quite a bit, I think this movie would be much more positive if that dynamic between Florence and Harry was much more than just physical, where Florence is bringing really her all.
She's punching.
Yeah. Almost equivalent to Midsommar in the type of emotion that she's bringing, and the range, almost the, she goes from emotional to determined to, snide to crafty, a whole bunch of things. Yeah. And then just Harry's just there and giving the most bland type of performance you could really not ask for, but but see on screen. So, but hey, we'll go back to that Crawdads review. Maybe I'm not the demographic. Maybe you see Harry and the visual is all you need with it. But let's go ahead and kind of get back to the story here. There's just not a lot of story.
It's 2 hours and 3 minutes, by the way. way.
Yeah. Which thankfully Stepford Wives wasn't that long, but I don't think I really discussed it before in the podcast. But I mean, there are just times in the story that this could just be boiled down to a Twilight Zone episode, I mean, this to a T feels like a drawn-out TV show plot, or you want a modern day, a Black Mirror type of show that it's a single premise just drawn out. Now, granted, what the filler to that runtime is, again, these kind of psychedelic horror sequences, her going through a lot of stress and a lot of breakdown. But when it comes to what we're spending time with, there's no problem solving. There's no really plot development. And really, when it comes down to it, if I had to lay out beat for beat what actually happens as far as story development and what our characters interact with, it could probably be like a 50-minute TV show.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering that almost it's the worst platform for it being a film.
Yeah.
It's like what you're saying is it could be an hour television show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
less, maybe.
What I'm hearing, though, is just like, what if they expanded on everything a little bit more and made it a miniseries? Like, did this have vibes just because of the storyline, dystopia in this, and you're in this community and everything like this? It almost reminds me, what was that miniseries that we got into, Prisoners, with Ian McKellen?
Oh, yeah. Prisoners, it was with Ian McKellen and who else?
I forget who the main actor was.
Yeah,
you would recognize him. But you know what I mean? It's like almost like maybe it was just the worst platform for it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I just think more needed to be done with the unraveling of
Were you getting bored watching this?
I wouldn't say that, because I did enjoy the style, ultimately. I did enjoy...
It was pretty to look at.
Yeah, it was pretty to look at. I really like Florence Pugh as
That's good. That's good that she's holding up something, at least. Yeah.
So there was a lot there that I did respect. As far as the visuals themselves, they are very striking, maybe psychedelic is the wrong way to word it, but again, it's like trippy ballerina dancers, and then it's maybe like the
cinematographer did Black Swan.
Yeah. Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. It all ties. But yeah, another highlight, and maybe kind of underlined by some slight disappointment, is that the cult-like aspects are very cool in this. They are layered into conversations.
Okay.
It's layered into pop propaganda and world building. I liked it a lot, but so many are just hanging threads that never get answered in the story. And by the end of the story, you start to realize they're hanging threads for a reason. They're not going to be answered.
Okay.
I think this encompasses a little bit of the minority among people that are really giving this film flack, because they're saying, well, there's so many plot holes, and how could this be a function? I kind of understand this film to never be interested to answer those, and instead, let's reduce it to, okay, the fundamentals here is probably just a TV show elevated, stretched out. Again, a 50-minute story stretched to 2 hours. The bulk of the runtime are these visual horror set pieces and sequences around Pugh. There might not be much substance here, but it's packed with good-looking horror, slightly reminiscent of Mandy in that ways, and very, very slightly. Just in the sense that there's dedicated runtime to just visuals and just kind of building mood to it. And the visuals are the focus alone in a lot of this. If you dig style here, folks, understand that this is way, way, way style over substance. Understand that, if your expectations are through the roof on this, especially fueled by the drama and the, kind of the industry talk of this, let's kind of quell that down a little bit. And I think you're going to enjoy this a lot more. Is it a masterfully crafted mystery? No. But is it a good looking thriller? I think so. Some plot holes may confuse and annoy some audiences, but my gripes around that disappeared once I realized what this was, a elevated and maybe a little bloated Twilight Zone episode. We're going to go ahead and give Don't Worry Darling a 62.
Okay, 62, good, a relatively good movie.
Yeah,
but
I think ripe for watching on streaming when inevitably it comes to a free streaming platform.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's good where it sits there. Okay, Vince, so looking at these films here, is there anything you'd like to add, or we're going to roll credits here?
No, I think that's it. Excited for next week. Doing a Marilyn Monroe special for Blonde, and watching some Marilyn
Yeah, I mean,
Monroe films. I mean, I haven't seen anything of hers. So,
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's a big move. I mean, actually, yeah.
Yeah, that's
we
the talk.
think this film was talked about. That one is really talked about.
Yep.
All right, Vin. Vin, thanks for watching these. Thanks for stopping by. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time here. We have Eyes Wide Shut with a 70%, The Stepford Wives with a 36%, Coherence with an 80%, See How They Run with a 59%, and Don't Worry Darling with a 62%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening and producing, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.